Hello people, this is Sumit and welcome to the second part of my video tutorial on creating a Christmas scene in Blender. Now in this scene or in this video I'll be covering up modeling my Christmas tree and the fireplace, the smoke simulation, the major two subject in this scene. So without any further delay, let's get started. Now this is the scene that we have left in the first part of the video series. If you haven't seen the first part, there is a link right on the top of the screen where you can find where to find the first part of this scene or the Christmas scene render. Okay, let's now move on. Now in order to create that Christmas tree, I will go to another layer, visible layer, and let's get rid of this camera view and let's go to front orthographic view by pressing numpad 1, and here I will be modeling the Christmas tree. So moving on, I'll press Shift A and add a curve which is a sapling tree gen. Now if you don't have these add-ons enabled, you can easily get it at your user preference, go to the add-ons and just click on sapling and you will find that add-ons right away. Let's move on with this. Now just adding with this sapling tree gen, you can see that it's a very base mesh or very base curve actually. So let us give it a little bit of shape by clicking on the bevel. Now you can see that it's a very base or a very undignified tree, yeah, something like that. And for the shape I will be selecting conical because our Christmas tree is actually conical in shape. And yeah, that's all for now with this geometry section. Clicking on these settings will now go to the branch splitting sections where I'll be cranking the levels up to level 3 so that introducing some more branches to the secondary branch. The third level branch is actually the sub branches which is added to the primary or the secondary branch. Actually the primary branch is it is actually the primary branch. This is a trunk, this is the primary branches, and these are the secondary branches. So level 3 denotes the secondary branches. And now I will crank the trunk height down to about 0.15, which means I am ascribing only 15% of the bare trunk, and then from where the branches are starting to get evolved. And for the split height I will just give it something about, no, I'll leave it where it is because I don't want any split heighting or splitting of the height of this tree. And the level of the branch is actually, or the number of branches which you need to ascribe, is right down in these sections. There are a lot of settings which I won't be doing all of them. I'll just give a very little, I'll just tweak to the very little settings or very little of the tweakings to be done here, because of the fact that you can see that these branches are very bare. You can easily see through from these second and primary level branches. These are very low numbered branches. The second or the primary branches, better to say, are given the number 50. So there are only 50 primary branches. So I'll just crank it up to maybe 120, and you can see that it has got more branches all around the trunk. Maybe 150 will be good enough for it. And for the segment splits I'll be giving it a value of, say, something about 5. So one branch will give 5 different segments or 5 different branches which will act as another secondary branches. And for the second level of the branches, I will be ascribing the number up to 40, yeah, something like that, and this will slow down your computer. You can see already my computer has been slowed down. And for the segment splits of these secondary branches, I will just give 0.2 value, so as to give a little bit of a splitting of these secondary branches. Maybe it was too little, maybe 0.5. Let me see. Yeah, something like that. Okay, now I think I need to crank it up a little bit for the outward attraction, which means how much the branches are going to the outside, or how much the branches are actually spreading out. So I'll give it a value of 0.3. that means 30% of the outward attraction. And for the branching mode, let me just yeah, something like that. And for the branching mode, I'll just click on original. You can also select random if you want, but to me original suits best. It's totally depending upon you or the users or the eyes of the creator where you want your branches to be. Now, as you can see that although I've tweaked a lot with these branches, yet it is not looking as much realistic. This is because of the fact that the segment splits is actually too low, I suppose. Maybe if I'm giving it as 10 segment splits, it will definitely slows my computer down, and it has not yet got a good one. Okay, let me go it down about 0.5, maybe 0.8. So I was messing up, I think, and yeah, it's actually looking quite nice right now. So I was doing a little bit of a crazy stuff of increasing the segment splits too much. You can also it's actually a very good way to increase your segment splits, but it will definitely slow the computer. It will definitely slow your computer down, trust me on this. Okay, do I need to do anything else here? I think not. And let's go to branch growth, where the length of the branches are to be denoted. Now you can see that it's actually perfectly conical in shape, so I'll just give a length to about maybe 0.35, increase the length a little bit, and let's see how it is done. Oh, it was maybe 0.32, and let's see how the shape is actually acting. Yeah, like that. And for the length variation, I will just give a 5% of the value, so it will be 0.5. So some of the branches will actually look huge, and some of them will actually spread to a longer distance, and some of them will be short, which is perfectly natural, because you know it very well that in real world these branches sprang out randomly. And for the secondary branches, I'll just give it a length variation of 0.2, so as to give it even more randomness in its shape. And yeah, something like that. It's looking quite nice already. And for the down angle of this of the primary branch, I will give a value of 120. This is the down angle, so as to make it more flatter. What is that? More flat in shape, actually. Yeah. And for the down angle variation, I'll just lower it down to 45, to about 45 degree. Let me see, and yeah, like that. And for the secondary branches, I'll increase it up to 60. Let's see how it's done. And this is already looking nice. And for the curvature, I'll just select -25, which will even flat it down or even make it more. It was too much, bit too much, maybe -35. The point of doing all these things is this curvature is actually making, the more it is going on the top, the flatter it will become, and as it is going towards the base, the curves are actually acting towards the minus value or negative value. And for the variation, I will just decrease it down to about 10 instead of 50, so as to give more random shape. And now you can see it has got a good shape after all. And for the back curvature, I will give it a very little value of 0.5, yeah, something like that. And for the vertical attraction, for the primary branches, to about 0.2, so as to give it more like a curved shape. Maybe it was too much, maybe 0.35. Nope, it was too much, 0.15. I have to decrease it down. Maybe 0.12. It's about you. It's according to your eyes, how you interpret the scene, and yeah, something like that. Okay, let us just now go to our branch radius section, and now it's time to give the root flare. That means to give a thickness for the root, and for this section I'll just select 1.2 for the root flare, so as to give it a little bit of a thickness towards the root, and that's the one I need. And let me just increase the level of branches a little bit higher for the secondary branches to about 50, and let me see how it's actually looking. It's looking more jagged than it was before, and let me just lower it down to 0.5, and I think that is going to be rather nice. Let me lower it down a little bit, even more, maybe 0.25, and maybe 0.3. This is actually one of the boring sections where you are literally being frustrated by the ships, but all the things you must have to bear in mind that no such thing in real world is, no such thing as perfection is there in real world. So there is nothing like a uniqueness, or sorry, uniformity in this real world. So all you have to do is to give a little bit of a variation. For this split angle, let me just give a 0.2 value for the split angle for the primary branch, and this has increased the beauty of our Christmas tree far beyond than it was before, and I can tell you that. And for the curve resolution, I will just select 8. Let me see. It's definitely will slow my computer down. No, let me just give it level 10, and let's see the beauty of our Christmas tree. And yep, there we are. Here we are with our Christmas tree. Now this is actually one thing that to be kept in mind If you are accidentally selecting something, if you're accidentally misplacing something, and if you want to go back, you cannot just click on Ctrl Z to get back. Once you do it, you will just go aloof. Everything will be just shut down, means your curve will actually be just vanish out of the scene, and you have to do it again. So it's very, very important to do all the settings right in here and do not do anything out of this setting box. So this is actually the one that I need, and for the scalings I'll just give it 2.5 of the scale to make it even smaller, which will fit with my scene. And here we are with our Christmas tree. Now you can see that it's actually slowing my computer down, so I'll just separate these branches to I'll just keep these branches to this layer and move the trunk to the another layer. So in order to do that, I'll just hit L and hit P to make it a separate selection. Now my trunk is separated. Now why on earth did I actually do that? It's due to the fact because I want, instead of manually doing everything, I'll just give a very little leaves or spines, better to say, for these particular branches, and there will be a particle settings for these branches which will be simulating the hairs or the spines, which will simulate something like leaves or reality spines, or real spines, better to say. Now let me move it to first layer and let me scale it according to my scene. As you can see, it's actually rather big for the scene, so we'll just scale it down a little bit and maybe move it right over there, maybe even move it right over there. And if I'm going to the viewport rendering, let me see whether my scene is actually taking place good or not. And one thing I have seen that it needs to be described like here, positioned right over there, maybe a little bit towards there, and yeah, some place like there. And voila, our Christmas tree has been perfectly placed in our living room. Now I'll just save this one, and now it's time to give some materials. Oh yeah, give some materials to this spine. So let's move it to the second layer, and for this branch I'll just give a very basic very basic material. So we'll click on this little devil one box and select on new, click on new, so as to give it a very base color. For the color of the trunk, I will just give a diffused shader about, and select the color to be a dark brown, and let us see whether the color is interpreting perfectly with the scene or not. Yeah, it's actually interpreting with our scene in a good fashion. And now it's time for these branches. Let me rename this one as branches, and for this one, let me give it a name. Let me rename it as trunk. Okay, and now we need to add some particle settings right in our branches, but as you can see, I cannot find any particle settings tab for these branches. This is because of the fact that it is not a mesh, it's actually a curves. These are actually curves which we need to convert it into mesh. So Alt C and then selecting mesh from curve, meta, surf or text, and automatically it will convert it it will be converted into meshes. And you can see that the particle settings tab has already been applied here. So we'll give it a rotation and scale, and let's go ahead and create that particle settings. For the type of the particles, we'll select hair, and the number of the hair I'll just lower it down to 100, because I don't want my computer to crash down, because it's actually the 4th time that I've been doing this one, and before this 4th time I've been trying 3 times, and for the 3 different times my computer accidentally crashed. So I don't want to crash my computer again, so lowering the settings down will give us the desired result, and I can crank or I can tweak with the settings. And one thing, if everything is all right with the low settings, with the high settings it will work as well. So giving it a very lower amount of values will help me to edit and tweak with the settings. Now for the hair, we have for the particle settings we have selected the hair. Let me rename this one as spines, because that's what we will be generating. And for the settings also we'll be renaming it as spines. For the number, I have already ascribed to about 100, and we will click on this advanced button, and the emitter type will be changed from faces to vertices or vertex groups, like that. And right now I can see that the hairs are very huge, so I'll just give it a very lower amount, maybe 0.02 will help with the scene. And let me see, where are my hairs? Well, it must be right in here. It must be right somewhere. Okay, let me just give it a shape like that. And right now you can see that the hairs are actually, I cannot see the hairs right now because these are actually being hidden behind this mesh. So let me select this texture. Oh, sorry, let me go ahead and let me just go to the white paint, yeah, where I can see my hairs perfectly. So I'll just now decrease the value to about 0.2, and we'll see whether it's actually being given a perfect length. And right now, as you can see, these hairs are actually getting a good length. So I'll just go again to the object mode, and now it's time for tweaking some of the settings with this one. For the size, it's actually given 0.05, and the forces for the Brownian version of Brownian, or whatever you call it, I'll just give it to about 0.02 value of Brownian, yeah, Brownian. And let's see. Yeah, this seems to be good. And yeah, something like that. And let us give it I'll click on the children, and for the emitter type of the children I'll select interpolated, which will give some more branches or some more definition of these hairs. And let me see whether there is something else. Yeah, and for the thickness of the root, I'll just ascribe to about 0.1, so as to give it a more random value, more thinner hairs than that of those thicker hair. Now, having these things done, I'll increase the number to about 10,000, and now you can see that it's slowing my computer down a lot. And for the by default there is a default material, and we need to give two different materials for these branches. So we'll click on the plus button and we'll click on new, and for the first one I'll rename it as the spine, and for these spines I'll just select a very basic color of a dark green or a green shape like that, and we'll select another. And for this material, let me just rename it as branches, and we'll select the material of the branch as for the branches. And for the particle settings, there is already the material applied, which is spine, and which is even good. And yeah, that's all for now with my Christmas tree. Let me move it to the first layer, and let's see how the scene is interpreted with a viewport rendering. Once I can see it, once it's rendered. Yeah, and yeah, I can see that the image has been rendered, but the branches are actually been ascribed to only this color of the spine instead of the color of the branches. So in order to avoid this confusion, my branches have already been selected. I'll go to the edit mode, select everything, and by selecting this material I'll hit assign, and thus my branches has been ascribed with this material. Now, as you can see that it's actually slowing my computer down, so I'll just go ahead and click on this visibility button off, or visibility options off for this scene, and let us give it a test render. Now you can see that in this first layer I have got this room and the main trunk, and in the second layer I've got only branches. Now here I will do some other things. If I am bringing my branches over in this scene, and if I'm increasing some more meshes, it will slow my render down a lot. So what I'll be doing, I'll just go ahead, select this layer first, and then by holding shift selecting this layer. Now I have got both of these layers selected, and let us hit a test render, and let's see, in order to see how is my scene interpreted. For the test scene I'll just give a sampling of 30, and let me pause the video and I'll be coming back after the rendering is done. So here is the scene, and it's rendered, and you can, as I can see, that there are lots of settings or tweakings to be done. My Christmas tree has been generated, but it's actually not up to the mark. So maybe we have to, or maybe I have to give some more tweakings as well. Now for the emission shader, for the convenience, or for the convenience of this scene, I have to decrease the value from about 10,000 to 5,000. Let me just increase it about 8,000, because this was actually the settings that I actually used. And for the Brownian sections, let me just increase it to about 0.05, and yeah, like something like that. And let's give it another render, and let's see how this thing is done. So after tweaking the settings, as you can see that the Christmas tree is rather looking nice there, or better than it was before. So I'll just maybe some even more tweakings is to be needed. Let me just make it a little bit better. So increasing the Brownian factor to about 0.07 will give me more desired results than it is right now before. And for the size, there is for the physics size, it has been ascribed to about 0.05. I will increase the random value to about 0.5, so as to give 50% of the randomness. And for the hair value, it's given 0.05, yeah, something like that. It's actually not bad at all. So for the final time, okay, for the third time, let me hit render, and let's see whether my scene is getting better or not. So the rendering has been done with increasing the settings, and I'm pretty much satisfied with this cute little Christmas tree that I've created. Yay, we have done with the Christmas tree. Although now a lot of detailings to be done, but I'll be covering those detailings and some other tweakings of the settings with these materials in the next video. That is the third part of the video, where a lot of things will be done with the detailings of the scene to achieve even much more realistic look. So but right now I'm satisfied with this, and we'll move on. Now it's time for us to create that fireplace, or yeah, with the fireplace. So this fireplace, or the smoke simulation, which I want to be done, which will be within this area. So I'll click on my room and select this face and snap my cursor to the selection, and we'll just move it to the third layer where I will be modeling these fire simulation. Okay, let me just save my project. And now, in order to create that smoke, or the smoke simulation, we need to create a UV sphere which will be the emitter of our smoke simulation. And let me scale it down a little bit, maybe something like that, and apply rotation scale to my UV sphere. And in order to create a quick smoke, I'll just hit the spacebar and type quick, and you can see quick smoke. The option of the quick smoke is already been there, so I'll just select, and you can see that the smoke is already been generated. Now this is actually a very basic smoke, which is not too huge or not too detailed smoke. So in order to get that detailed structure, what we need to do is go to my physics tab, and let me just increase the division to about 40, because that's what will give me some more definitive or more definited smoke. And I'll click on the smoke high resolution. I'll just select this one. So now you can see, although my animation is playing at a very lower pace, yet the smokes are highly detailed than it was before. Now in general, the smoke simulation is actually been ascribed to only a smoke. There's no fire. So what I'll be doing is, let me just pause this one, select my emitter, and for the flow type there is an option which is called smoke. I'll just click on fire. Thus it will enable fire instead of smoke. As you can see, the fire is emitted at a very good rate, or in a very well defined manner. Now one thing is to be put in mind, that whenever we are rendering it, we don't get anything, because of the fact that in cycles we have to manually put that fire or the color of the fire to get the material of the fire in our scene. Now thanks to Enterprise, he has given us a solution. So what we need to do in this node editor is just copy this attribute, duplicating them, and rename them as flame, and add a color ramp. Let me just introduce a color ramp, and plug the color value to the factor, and just define some of the factors. Now for the first channel it's black, and for the second channel right over here I will select something like a highly saturated red tone, somewhere around here. And for the third channel I'll be selecting an orange tint right about there, and the fourth channel will be white, pure white, I think. Let me just select this one, yeah. And here I will be ascribing a shader which will be an emission shader. Plug the color output of the color ramp to the color input of the emission shader, and plug the emission shader to the second value of the add shader. Now if I'm going to my viewport rendering, you can see that already my fire has got its material. Now there is a little bit of a tweakings to be done, because the strength of this emission shader is actually been given at a very low place. So what we can do is add a math node, plug the color to the value, and plug the value to the strength of my emission shader, and just increase the value to about 10, and let us see, maybe 5 will be a good one. And if I'm just tweaking with these settings, maybe something like multiply would be good. Now you can see that the fire is actually being emitted properly. Now for this UV sphere, I'll go to the properties tab and go to the cycle setting, and just for the raise visibility I'll just uncheck the camera tab, so that my UV sphere won't be actually being emitted to the camera. Actually, I think I did a little bit of a mistake. Okay, like that. I think this one should be unchecked. And yep, that's it. This has solved the problem. Now all we need to do is position these two things to the fireplace. Let me scale it down much like somewhere like there, and it's now time for my domain to be edited. We'll just go ahead and decrease the value to about something like there. The point of doing this is to just align the domain with that of the fireplace. Excuse me for that. And yeah, something like that will give us the value. Now let me just play the animation in order to see whether it's actually emitting properly or not. Let's go to the camera view and let us see. Now I can see that although the animation is playing quite well, yet the fire is actually too much for the scene. So we'll play with the animation. Now I won't be bothering about the smoke cache. You can bake it if you want to save it for your future use. I have selected various I have actually saved various caches for smoke simulation, so I won't be bothering about baking this one. But yeah, you can do it. All you have to do is just click on this bake button and it will be saved into your mother drive where you are actually saving your blend files, and you can also use those baked simulation for the future reference. All you have to do is just click on this external button and just import that blend cache or the cache file that you have saved into the scene, and your scene will get as much easier as I actually do it. So a little bit more and I think my simulation played, yeah, something like that. And one thing I can see that the fire, although is actually flowing with much ease, but the UV sphere is actually too huge for the scene. So I'll click on this UV sphere and scale it down to about, let me just move it to another layer for the convenience and scale it down, maybe something like that, and move it back to the first layer. And this time again we have to play the animation, and now you can see that the fire is actually getting quite good. And another thing I can also do is make my UV sphere flat even more, then or even scale it to X and Y axis to make it even more wider, and just place it over there. And let me play the animation again, and this time you can see that the fire is getting much more area than it was actually using before. Fine enough for this scene. And one thing is to be put in mind. I can see that the fire, although it's getting much higher value here, but it's not still looking so good, so we'll just tweak with the value with the node settings, and we'll see what we can do with the tweakings. Maybe some place around there seems to be good, and just bring this, let me just change it to multiply, or even now let us see. Or I can just, if I'm deleting this one and increasing the strength to about 10, what's happening? Okay, so now it's time to give my smoke some more advanced resolution. For the resolution division, it's by default it's 1. We'll select 3 for the division, and another thing, something like that, and let me see how is the smoke coming up. Let me just check this one, and if this will be required, I will pick this for the convenience of the scene to set up, because it's taking quite, you can see it's taking quite some time to bake the entire scene. So let me pause this video recording and let's see if I can bake this one. Okay, so I baked the smoke simulation until till frame 51, I suppose. Yeah, 51, because that's what I actually needed for the scene, and I did some of the changes in the settings. For the smoke high resolution, I increased the value of division to about 4, and for the node setup I did a mistake. The multiply value will be connected to the factor value of this attribute, which was the flame. And yeah, let me just now look at the scene, and let's see how is my smoke is simulated. Now it's actually acting quite nice until now. So it's now time for us to add some wooden logs. Yeah, wooden logs. So in order to create that wooden logs, I will just go ahead and create a cylinder with 8 vertices, and rotate it along the x-axis to about 90 degree. No, it will be rotate along the y-axis to about 90 degree, and scale it down to about this size, and scale according to the x-axis like there. And we'll just introduce some different loop cuts to create a varied log for the fireplace. And let me just move it to my first layer and let us see how is my log interacting with this fire. And yeah, something like that. And let me just decrease the size and put it right over there, and duplicate it, rotate it along the z-axis, and just give some of the random some more even random logs. I think, yeah, this one and this one, it would be okay. Let me just move it to this layer and select this log as well and select it to another layer. And now it's time for duplicating and rotating along the z-axis, create some more variations for the logs. Maybe something like this. Creating some more clumps. And yeah, that's what the log is all about. And let me give it a very basic shape, a very basic material. Let me just see, and then selecting every other logs, and then selecting this one. No, let me select this one, and I'll hit Ctrl L to apply the materials. So far so good. Let me just see how is my renderings done with the viewport engine, and I can see it's not looking quite bad. Yeah, something like that. Maybe I need to increase the color or the strength of the value a little bit. Let me just get and increase the strength to about 10, and let us see. And yes, that is it's perfect. It's perfect. The only reason you cannot see these leaves is just because of the fact that we have turned off the visibility of these hairs or the spines. If I'm turning it up, if I'm turning it on, the visibility of the spine, it will take some time, but here it is. You can see the spines are there. Now this concludes the second part of my video. So we have created the Christmas tree as well as the fireplace for this scene. And okay, let me just add some more details to the fireplace. I'll just add a point lamp in order to have some emission, and for this point lamp I'll just give a strength of about, what is it, it's 100 by default. We'll just add a black body node to this color and set the temperature to about 3000 so as to give it more yellow tint, and let us see. And yeah, it is emitting quite good. The light which we wanted is perfectly being emitted. Now, I think the point lamp is right over there, so we'll just move it to the first layer and drag it up a little bit, and maybe increasing the size to about 200, and we'll see. Maybe it was too much. It was too much. Maybe someplace around this, and give it a strength value of 10. Let me tweak with the settings until I find yeah, this one seems to be good. So we have came across with introduction of a point lamp which has been generated in order to simulate that light inside this fireplace. And yeah, that concludes the second part of the video. In this video we have covered with our Christmas tree as well as the fireplace, and with the detailings and the carpet, and for the volumetric lights, and some other detailings will be done in the third and the final part of this video, and this will finally conclude the series. Hope you guys like it. That's it for today. I'm Sumit, and if you like my videos, then hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel in order to get some more interesting videos like this one. So enough for today. Happy blending. Peace.